the ancient world, a place where stones breathed and statues spoke. Imagine, if you will, a time when emperors sought not only to rule the bodies of men, but to conquer their minds, their very souls. Yes, this was Rome. And oh, how masterfully she wove her legends, tales spun so tightly that even today the echoes reach us. Now just close your eyes for a moment and envision a young Roman walking the bustling streets of the empire. All around him are statues of gods and emperors, coins exchanging hands, each bearing the face of Augustus, that first emperor, the one who began it all. The young Roman gazes up, his eyes wide, seeing not just marble and bronze, but the divine. For Augustus was more than a man. He was Rome itself, made flesh. But here's the twist, the great illusion. This Augustus, this godlike figure, was a mere mortal, subject to fears, doubts, and ambitions, as base as any other man. But you see, Augustus knew something that others did not. He knew that power, true power, is not always found in armies or swords. Sometimes it lies in the stories we tell and the images we create. Take, for example, the great statue of Augustus, the Prima Porta. This was no mere likeness, no simple carving in stone. No. This statue was a message, a proclamation to his people and his enemies alike. Augustus, standing tall, his face youthful and flawless, his hand raised in command. His armor, oh that armor, was covered in symbols of victory, of gods, of divine favor. Here was Augustus, not as he was, but as he wanted the world to see him. Ageless, God-touched, an unbreakable pillar of Rome. He would stand as eternal as the empire he sought to build. The people, they believed. Of course they believed. How could they not? This was the image they saw day after day, year after year. To them, Augustus wasn't just a ruler. He was Rome's living symbol, a protector, a god walking among them. And that belief was the bedrock of his power. But Augustus was clever, you see. He understood that stone and bronze alone could not reach every corner of his vast empire. No, he needed something that would cross borders, travel from hand to hand, a piece of Rome that could be held in the palm. And so he turned to coins. Yes, the humble coin, small, easily overlooked, but in the hands of Augustus it became a weapon of unparalleled influence. Each coin bore his face, his name, his titles. Each one was a tiny portrait, a little reminder that wherever you were, whether in Rome itself or in the farthest reaches of the empire, Augustus was there, his image in your hand, his power ever present, a symbol of Rome's greatness, imprinted upon the currency of daily life. But these coins were more than portraits. They were messages crafted with the precision of a poet. Some coins showed Augustus crowned with laurels, the mark of a conqueror. Others showed him with gods, with symbols of peace, as if to say, "Look upon your emperor and know that he is favored by the heavens." They whispered to the people softly but persistently, "Rome is strong, Rome is blessed, Rome is eternal." And oh, how the people believed. Now picture this, a common Roman, a farmer perhaps, toiling in the fields in some distant province far from the heart of Rome, far from the grand temples and statues. This farmer may never have seen Augustus in the flesh, may never have laid eyes upon the splendor of Rome itself, but in his hand he holds a coin stamped with the emperor's face, and as he gazes at it, he feels connected to something greater, something eternal. This, my friends, was Augustus's genius. He didn't need to be everywhere at once. His image, his myth, could spread across the empire, seeping into the very soul of Rome's people, uniting them, binding them to his rule. Through statues and coins, he became a god, a legend, a presence that transcended flesh and blood, and the people, they loved him for it. But behind this grand image, behind the marble, the metal, the myth, lay a truth far more complex. Rome was not the peaceful, unified empire Augustus wanted the world to see. Rebellions simmered, dissent whispered from the edges of the empire. The so-called Pax Romana, this Roman peace that Augustus proclaimed, was in reality held together by force, by conquest, by the ruthless crushing of opposition. The borders were not quiet. They were bloody, constantly in turmoil. And yet, the people believed in the illusion because that illusion, that crafted story, was stronger than any army, more enduring than any wall. And that, my dear friends, is the power of a well-told story, the magic of a well-placed image. Augustus' empire was not built merely on conquest. It was built on the foundation of belief, on the carefully constructed vision of Rome as an unbreakable, God-touched civilization. Imagine for a moment what it would be like to live in that world, a world where statues gaze down upon you, serene and unchanging, a world where coins carry the face of a god-emperor, a world where you felt in your very bones that your empire was eternal. But Rome's story does not end there. For Augustus may have perfected the art of illusion, but those who came after him, oh, they elevated it to new heights. As Augustus passed, so too did his crafted vision of Rome pass into the hands of new emperors, each one eager to don the mantle of divinity, to carve their own face into eternity. And so the statues rose higher, the monuments grander, the coins glinted ever more brightly. Each ruler added to this myth, each one more ruthless, more desperate to be seen as eternal, as untouched by the petty sufferings of mortals. Consider the Emperor Hadrian. Now here was a man who, like Augustus, understood the power of a well-told lie. Hadrian toured his empire, not just as a ruler, but as a god visiting his creation. In distant Britannia, he ordered the construction of a massive wall to mark the boundary of his power, to say to the world, here is Rome's edge. Beyond this, chaos reigns. But within these walls, the empire is unshakable. Hadrian raised temples, rededicated cities, stamped his name upon the land as if he could freeze it in time, and his image too traveled with him. Statues in his likeness rose from the sands of Egypt to the hills of Gaul. Coins bearing his face found their way into the hands of millions. People who would never hear his voice, who would never lay eyes on his physical form, saw his image each day, a small piece of Hadrian's empire, a piece of his power. Now think of this, a humble merchant in the far reaches of Gaul, thousands of miles from Rome, counting his coins by the flickering light of a hearth. In his hand, a coin with Hadrian's face, the emperor's eyes gazing back, serene, all-knowing. This simple merchant struggling through the hardships of life felt, even in that distant place, the presence of Rome. And that was the point, wasn't it? To remind each subject, no matter how far-flung, that the emperor saw them, knew them, ruled them. And yet there's a tragic irony here, isn't there? For all the glory Rome projected, for all the images of divine emperors and eternal peace, Rome itself was beginning to weaken. The borders grew restless, the rebellions more frequent. But the emperors, they were trapped by their own myth, bound to uphold the image of Rome's invincibility no matter the cost. The people began to see the cracks. They whispered of tyrants, of madness, of emperors more interested in their own worship than the welfare of Rome. Nero, Caligula, names that echo through time, remembered not for their greatness, but for their cruelty, their excesses. These men, too, claimed the divine right to rule, yet in their hands, Rome's myth began to wither. Coins, once symbols of greatness, became reminders of oppression, of taxes that drained the lifeblood of the people. Statues, once symbols of unity, now cast shadows over a crumbling empire. The people began to see these monuments for what they were, illusions, masks hiding the truth of Rome's decline. And yet, even as the empire weakened, even as the dream of an eternal Rome faded, the symbols endured. Rome may have fallen, but its image, its legacy, was too deeply rooted in the minds of its people, too beautifully woven into the fabric of time. And so, the coins and statues persisted scattered across the centuries, silent witnesses to a civilization that once believed it would never end. Today, when we hold a coin from ancient Rome or gaze upon a weathered statue, we are in a way touching that belief. We're feeling the weight of an empire that was more than stone and mortar, more than conquest and law. Rome was a story, a beautiful, tragic story of men who wished to be gods, of a world that sought order through illusion, of an empire that tried to craft a legacy out of marble and myth. So perhaps that is Rome's greatest legacy, not its monuments, not its conquests, but its ability to make us believe. Because in the end, we too live by stories, by symbols, by the dreams of empires long gone. And like Rome, we too will leave behind a story, waiting to be told, waiting to be remembered, waiting to echo across the ages.